Bibliophiles of the internet, my name's Adriana. I cut my hand this morning on a pot. I have over 1,000 subscribers, which if we just put that in perspective, the last time I did a wrap-up I had like 200 subscribers. And I read 14 things this month, so I am here to bring you my April wrap-up. Whew! That was a lot. So the first thing I read in April was a contemporary manga called Solanin by Inio Asano. I first heard about this book from Lindsay, from Lindsay's library. It was in her Top 5 Wednesday for Top 5 book recommendations for new readers. And even though I am not a new reader, I took that recommendation. And it's about a girl who is fresh out of college. She's living with her boyfriend. She's kind of working a dead-end job, one that pays the bills but doesn't really make her happy. The whole story centers around the idea of when is a good time to pursue your dreams, if ever. I really ended up loving this story because I can really relate to the characters. They're more my age than a lot of the characters in YA who are like in high school or something like that. I really loved this book. I loved the writing. I loved the mood. I loved that it was driven by emotion. I really enjoyed the characters. It went to places that I didn't think it was going to go to. I just really enjoyed it overall, so I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And then I read one of my new favorite things ever, and that is the first book in a middle grade series, and that middle grade series is called The School for Good and Evil by Soman Chainani. This story is about a forest town, and every single year in this town there are 2 kids who are kidnapped in the middle of the night. And everybody can't help but notice that it's one good kid and one really awful kid. But then the citizens of this town realize after years and years and years, they go to this local bookstore and they buy fairy tales, and they realize that the kids who disappeared have started showing up starring in these fairy tales. So it turns out that the person who is kidnapping these children is the headmaster for a school called the School for Good and Evil, and it breeds 2 types of people, evers and nevers. Evers are like princesses and princes and heroes and all that kind of stuff, and nevers are the antagonists, the witches, the trolls, the goblins. It's original, it's hilarious, the writing is fantastic. The way Soman Chainani describes things is so wonderful, and he is a tremendous middle grade author. He doesn't water anything down because it's for a younger audience. It's also really hilarious, and it's one of those fairy tale inspired stories that makes a lot of jokes at the expense of other fairy tales, which I love. So it really does make fun of and bring light to a lot of conventions that we see over and over and over again in fairy tales. I just think it's really great. I love the characters. I love the story. It was absolutely fantastic, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And you know what's coming next. Attack on Titan. I read 5 more volumes this month, and that would be Volume 7, Volume 8, Volume 9, Volume 10, and Volume 11. First of all, I am not going to get into specifics about anything that happens in any of these volumes because that is spoiler city. However, this month I did do a spoiler-free discussion / review about Attack on Titan, and I will leave that in the description in case you want to know what this series is about because I explain it. You should watch it. Anybody who reads the manga and watches the anime, you probably know that volumes 7 and 8 overlap with what happened at the end of the anime, but it's presented so differently and in a way that really gives the audience more to think about. I thought I had seen it all, but all of these volumes are game changers. It's like you think you're safe, and then you read the next volume and you're like, what is going on? But it's so great! I'm pretty sure I didn't give anything lower than a 4.5, so I'm just gonna say, in general, 5 stars. Fan-flippin-tastic. Then I read the first book in a children's graphic novel series, and that is the Amulet series, and I read the first one, Amulet, the Stonekeeper by Kazu, Kibuishi, We're just butchering names here today, that's what we're doing. This story is basically about a family that is struck by tragedy, and this tragedy forces the family to move into a very strange very abnormal house. And once they move to this house, one of the children discovers, as you may have guessed from the title, an amulet. And soon after she finds this amulet, strange things start happening and they start hearing strange noises and stuff from the basement. And when they all go down to explore, the children's mother is kidnapped. I absolutely enjoyed this first book and I can't wait to get on with the series. So needless to say, I gave Amulet the Stonekeeper 4 out of 5 stars. In April, the trailer for the If I Stay movie dropped. So after I saw the trailer, the next 2 books that I read, naturally, were If I Stay and Where She Went by Gayle Forman. If you live under a rock or if you are unfamiliar, If I Stay is the story of a girl named Mia. She really has everything going on for her. She has a really great family and support system. She has a boyfriend who she is crazy in love with. She has an audition for Juilliard and she has a really good chance of getting in until one day she's on a drive with her family and they all get into a very serious car accident. Immediately following the car accident, Mia is having this sort of out-of-body experience where she can see herself as she's in the ICU, as she's in the hospital. And as the title of the book suggests, she has to decide whether she would like to stay or whether she would like to go. And obviously Where She Went is the companion novel and it's told from Adam's point of view. Adam is Mia's boyfriend, and so it focuses on his life 3 years after the accident and it talks a lot about how he was affected by it. It brings back some other characters back into play. How were they affected by the accident and how do they deal with grief and all that kind of stuff. I really respected If I Stay, but I didn't think it was fantastic. I didn't think it was that great. It's a very, very short novel, just coming in over 100 pages on my e-reader. And the result of the book being so brief is that a lot of scenes, a lot of key scenes that have to deal with characterization or they're like have to deal with emotionally building the story are what I like to call montaged over. So I didn't think that it was as powerful as it could have been, but it was still really good. And like I said, I definitely respected the writing. So I gave If I Stay 3.5 out of 5 stars. I'm just gonna say it up front. I gave Where She Went 5 out of 5 freaking stars because it was so good. But I found Adam's story to be more immediately relatable and more immediately pertinent to more people because his story has a lot to do with anger and grief and mourning and how do you handle these things, how do they affect you as a person, and how do you overcome them. So that's what I really loved about Where She Went. I really appreciated it, and by the last line I was like, wow. And when I finished with that, I started reading The Coldest Girl in Coldtown by Holly Black. I'm just gonna say it, it is a vampire story, but it is super freaking good. And this is coming from someone who does not really like paranormal stories, who does not really like vampire stories. Like, I was over it like new moon ago. But anyways, this story is about a girl named Tana, and her reality is that vampirism is a very real epidemic. It's like a disease, it's like an infection. Anybody who already is a vampire, anybody who is infected and has the chance of becoming a vampire is put into what are called cold towns. Cold towns are like quarantine zones. Tana goes to this party, and when she wakes up the next morning after having passed out, she finds out that all of her classmates are dead. And the one familiar face that she finds is her ex-boyfriend Aiden, but he has been bitten. So her ex-boyfriend Aiden is bitten and tied up, and there's also a stranger who's tied up in the room as well, and that guy is a vampire. So then Tana decides that the safest thing for all 3 of them to do is to turn themselves into the nearest cold town, and then it gets crazy. And it's a standalone! Ah, the angel choruses are sounding. I don't want to talk at all about my thoughts on The Coldest Girl in Coldtown because I did a whole review / discussion video of that, but I think it's fair to say that I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. Then I took a trip to my local library, and on a whim I picked up The 100 by Kass Morgan. So this is a YA sci-fi book, and it takes place in the future after Earth has endured this very terrible, very serious nuclear war. So humanity has been moved to this community of spaceships in outer space, obviously. So many years pass after this war, and humanity finally decides that they should probably think about retaking the Earth, reclaiming the Earth. But in order to do so, they need to know that the atmosphere is livable. Their solution, therefore, is to send 100 prisoners, 100 young prisoners, down to Earth to see if they will survive. I thought the world building was terrible, if it even existed at all in this book. I thought the characters were so melodramatic, and I hate melodramatic characters. So while this wasn't terrible and it was easy to get through and it had some really good like surface level things going on for it, I really was not a fan. So I gave the 100 2 out of 5 stars. So the last two things that I read in April, I know a lot of people are going to be really excited about, and I'm really excited about them, and that is the first 2 volumes in the Saga series by Brian K. Vaughan, I think that's how you say his name, and Fiona Staples. So Saga, for the most part, follows the story of 2 characters, Alana and Marco, and they are from 2 warring species. Alana hails from a planet that I believe is called Landfall, and Marco is a citizen of the moon that is above Landfall. Marco actually turns out to be a prisoner of war, and Alana is the one who is guarding him, but they end up falling in love, and they run away together, and they end up having a child together, which is practically unheard of. There are a lot of people from both sides who want to find this couple and they want to kill them. And they especially want to harm their offspring, their daughter, Hazel. It's really, really great. I mean, the reviews are not exaggerated. It is a really fantastic series. So needless to say, I gave the first 2 volumes of Saga 5 out of 5 stars each. I will say though, as like a warning, in the Saga series there is a lot of sexual content, a lot of adult content and language and that kind of stuff. So if you're easily offended by that kind of stuff, I would say approach with an open mind or flip the pages really fast. So feel free to tell me down below what were some of the things that you read in April, or what are you looking forward to reading in May. Thank you guys so much for your support and all your kind words. Thank you so much for subscribing and for commenting, and for just being people of the nicest possible caliber. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will catch you on the flip side of the page.